Chapter 151, Returning to Black Hot City. At dusk, Black Hot City was both the same and different than before. Zhang Tai stood among others returning from the survival training before the gates to Black Hot City, through which he had left 2 months ago. With his eyes narrowed, he glanced over the city. The walls were still tall and firm while the powerful city defense machinery and equipment were still grand and magnificent under the light of the sun. Everything seemed to not have changed, yet everything had changed. The 17-star flag of the Andaman Alliance, representing its authority by hanging on top of a high wall, was replaced by a scarlet dragon flag that represented the ruling authority of the Norman Empire. Flying in the heavy wind, that scarlet dragon flag brought a solemn atmosphere to the entire city. That dragon was a holy animal of the Chinese clan. It was said that after the founding emperor of the Norman Empire returned from his travels to the east, he raised this flag and punched down the territory of the Norman Empire using his own fists. Therefore, this scarlet dragon flag with rich Eastern features became the symbol of the imperial household, even the Norman Empire as a whole. What was known by all the people in the entire Blackson human clan corridor was that until now the imperial household of the Norman Empire was still closely related to the mysterious and powerful Eastern continent, as it had already mixed blood with the Eastern Chinese clan. Thinking back to how the animals in the survival training, including Zhang Tai himself, were worried about a war breaking out between the Andaman Alliance, Norman Empire, and Sun Dynasty, he mocked himself inwardly. When they left Black Hot City, who could have imagined that 2 months later upon their return they would have already become citizens of an imperial nation, the Norman Empire? In the past month, under the lightning attack of the armies of the Norman Empire and Sun Dynasty, the Andaman Alliance, which had existed for over 1 century, was about to die in the span of 5 days. It was cut into half like a piece of meat, and then was engulfed by the Norman Empire and Sun Dynasty. As for the 17 cities that had formed the Andaman Alliance, the Norman Empire had gained 8 and a large territory in the north, while Sun Dynasty had also gained 8 and a large territory in the south. With the exception of the city of Machine Caller, all the cities of the Andaman Alliance had been occupied by the 2 powers. The southern cities were more prosperous with more advanced commerce. The Andaman City, which was previously the capital of the Andaman Alliance, was also in the south. In contrast, the northern cities like Black Hot City had abundant resource reserves and advanced manufacturing industry. Based on the results, the Norman Empire and Sun Dynasty's move was more akin to robbery than a war. As early as before the move, they had already decided on how to share their booty. Compared to when they left the Black Hot City, when the animals came back, they were all obviously much quieter, mostly because they became uncertain and lost about their future. Unless deciding to leave Black Hot City, everybody had to swear to be loyal to the Supreme Emperor. This made the animals perplexed since they were used to being ruled by businessmen and factory and mine owners from birth. Zhang Tai was not as shocked as others about this change. Perhaps others didn't have this feel, but the moment he saw the scarlet dragon flag that represented the authority of the Norman Empire, he had already accepted the new rulers of Black Hot City inwardly. Since dragon was the totem of the Chinese clan, with dragon as the national symbol, of course the Norman Empire could obtain Zhang Tai's consent. In the Norman Empire, the proportion of Chinese people was also much higher than in the Andaman Alliance and Black Hot City. It was said that almost 1/20 of more than 200 million population of the Norman Empire were Chinese. At this time, the standing posts at the entrance of the city gate were manned not by the city guard of Black Hot City but the soldiers of the Norman Empire. These soldiers were taller, stronger, and looked more stubborn compared to their predecessors. Many people's armors were even with slash marks of daggers and swords. After comparing them with the city guard off Black Hot City, even Zhang Tai had to admit that these soldiers of the Norman Empire looked even more dauntless and aggressive. Perhaps this explained how different it was between the army ruled by businessmen and the army ruled by an emperor. People could clearly sense that solemn atmosphere of the imperial nation through the comparison between the 2 armies. Without any obstacles, the students who had attended the survival training entered Black Hot City. However, the moment they entered, many girls burst out with exclamations as a row of high gibbets were erected in a place not far away from the city gate. A row of bodies hung from those gibbets, flying in the air like cloth puppets. In taking over Black Hot City, the Norman Empire hadn't killed anyone. However, after gaining control, it started to kill people who preyed upon others, fattening themselves, or were ambitious, ready to take chances at gaining power in the new situation. After the Norman Empire's army entered the city and took over the ruling power of Black Hot City, the latter had their heads chopped off or were hung on the gibbets not far away from the city gates as examples. With long swords and the fresh blood of insurgents, the Norman Empire's army taught everybody in Black Hot City a lesson of being under the rule of the Norman Emperor. Be docile. The streets in Black Hot City looked a bit sluggish. Fewer walkers and vehicles could be seen on streets. Many stores had not opened their business yet. Patrolling soldiers could be seen everywhere on the streets. Some tanks and armored vehicles of the Norman Empire's Ironhorn army were parked at several junctions. In sharp contrast to the sluggish scene, in front of the doors and windows of each household, red flags could be seen flying in the air, including the Scarlet Dragon flag and Ironhorn Army's military flag. At the first sight of them, you would know that they were made by the commoners themselves. Even slogans that could rarely be seen before had appeared over the streets which would make young people's faces turn red. We welcome the Norman Empire's army in the city. Congratulations to Black Hot City becoming a LV4 city of Brunswick under the administration of the Norman Empire. Long live Norman Empire, and long live Ironhorn Army. Without being told how to, after the Coal, Steel, and Iron Federation's surrender of the city, the residents had quickly learned how to please their new urban ruler. At this moment, Black Hot City had become strange to everybody. After entering, the teachers of the Temporary Supervision Committee chose a route most convenient for sending all the girls back home. Girls from 2 female middle schools all lived in the neighboring 2 blocks. As for boys, although they were tired after walking for an entire day and craved to go back to their own homes, in order to send back all the girls safely, they instantly agreed to change the route. It seemed that the discipline in the Norman Empire's army was strict. At least none of the soldiers whistled at the girls. However, nobody wanted to imagine what would happen if the girls were going back home alone. On the way, the girls were constantly leaving the large group when they came close to their homes and trotted over. At the same time, parents were standing in front of their house doors for a long time now, waiting for their children to come back. Although having not seen each other only for 2 months, many students burst into tears together with their parents. From the morning till now, Zhang Tai had carried the 3 girls' luggage along with his own the whole walk of almost 60 kilometers. Although many students were exhausted by this point, Zhang Tai was still highly spirited and felt no tiredness at all. He was not the same boy that had left Black Hot City. When Alice, Beverly, and Pandora arrived at their homes one by one, Zhang Tai gave them back their luggage while making sure to remember their addresses. "You have to come here for me," Alice said to Zhang Tai in her farewell. "I'll be waiting for you at home. My mom will definitely like you," Beverly said to Zhang Tai in her farewell. "I seem to have grown up a bit," Pandora said to Zhang Tai in her farewell. He almost wanted to howl towards the sky. When the last girl returned home, all the remaining animals immediately scattered towards their own homes. After agreeing with Barley and other members of the Brotherhood on the next meeting time, Zhang Tai ran back to his own place. Seeing Zhang Tai darting so fast even now, Barley's and the other members of the Brotherhood eyes almost popped out. F***CK, is he a human or not? Zhang Tai is definitely a human-like magic beast. Hista exclaimed with only one breath left in his lungs. That guy really treasures his women. He carried their luggage for the entire day. The 3 women's luggage plus his own would weigh over 100 kilograms, and he carried such a heavy load throughout the whole day. And he can still run. Am I dreaming? Leet also became dumbfounded when he saw Zhang Tai disappear in the corner of the street. Zhang Tai was really not tired. In case of being too terrifying and bringing trouble to himself, he couldn't dash at his fastest speed back home no matter how much he wanted to do so. Thus, he controlled his speed to be almost the same as his sprinting speed at school. Only after 5 or 6 minutes, he had already passed by several streets and caught sight of his home. At the sight of his parents' shadows standing on the roadside waiting for him, Zhang Tai was moved and almost broke down. When he noticed the happy smiles on their faces, his tense heart finally eased off. Thankfully, nothing had happened to his family members. "Mom, Dad, I'm back!" Zhang Tai greeted his parents from far away like before. As his parents liked to see his naughtiness, Zhang Tai performed before them. After reaching home, he kissed his mom first. Then, he directly hugged his dad, lifting him up in the air and twirling for a circle. "Hurry up, let me off." Scared by Zhang Tai's move, his dad fiercely flicked his forehead with a finger. "It's not good if we're seen by others." Zhang Tai then put his dad onto the ground. "Dad, how about that? Have you noticed that I am stronger than before?" "Yi, it feels true. You really have become much stronger." Hearing the question, his dad also noticed the difference. "I seem to have grown taller too. Look, my clothes had become smaller. Zhang Tai stretched his sleeve's end. When he left home, it could reach over his wrist. However, now, it stopped before it. This meant that Zhang Tai had grown 3 to 4 centimeters during the past 3 months. Remember, don't lift me in the air in the street anymore, Dad told him solemnly. Okay. How about when nobody is around? Zhang Tai got one more flick on his forehead. He was really a bit different from when he left. After 3 months, his parents thought that he had changed because of the survival training. When he played jokes with his dad, his mom revealed a happy smile. All right, don't play jokes anymore. Come on, go back home and eat dinner. Is my elder brother home? He's making dinner, having been on vacation for a long time. It's unknown when he'll receive the notice to go back to work, his dad answered. Zhang Tai nodded and thought inside. Since the Ironhorn army of the Norman Empire entered the city guard of Blackhot City was ordered to put down their weapons and take a vacation at home. As there is still no notice of when to go back to work, it seems that the disarmament of the city guard will definitely happen. However, it's nothing serious. It's better to disarm the city guard. Additionally, my elder brother has almost finished his service term. Now that my elder sister-in-law is pregnant, he should stay to look after her. When he walked inside the house together with his parents, Zhang Tai saw 2 book-sized flags attached to their door. One was a scarlet dragon flag of the Norman Empire, and the other was the military flag of the Ironhorn army. Compared to those flags he'd seen on the way, Zhang Tai found that the 2 here were much more delicate. Mom, did you make these flags? Your elder sister-in-law and I made them together. She's really good at needlework. We even sold some of them, his mom replied, from which Zhang Tai knew that his mom was very satisfied with his elder sister-in-law. Of course, every mom-in-law would be satisfied with such a woman that was frugal. When Zhang Tai wanted to praise his mom, he caught sight of a person that should not have been here, Samira. In a silk hat, Samira looked as spirited as before. He was followed by a squad of armored soldiers of the Ironhorn army. That's him. Samira pointed at Zhang Tai and screamed. This person is the enemy of the Norman Empire, a potential insurrectionist who's hostile to Ironhorn army. Hearing what Samira said, the squad of soldiers of the Norman Empire all fixed their eyes on Zhang Tai with their hands on sword handles. What happened really made Zhang Tai's parents' face turn pale. Chapter 152, Murdering People with Others' Hands. Samira? His eyes fixed on the villain, Zhang Tai was really startled that Samira could jump out at this time. Previously Zhang Tai had set him up as a spy of the Norman Empire. However, he had never imagined that this guy would end up so well off that he would even bring soldiers of the Norman Empire's army to find him trouble at his home. Hey, you would have never imagined this. To tell the truth, I have to appreciate you. Samira glared fiercely at Zhang Tai. He could never forget about what had happened in the Wild Wolf Castle. It was this youth who had used his mouth to beat him into hell. At that time, Samira thought that he was over. Unexpectedly, after being put behind bars in Blackhot City for a few days, the Norman Empire's army came knocking. By a stroke of luck, Samira had obtained a chance. Before, he was a rat beat up everywhere in Blackhot City. Now, he became a good citizen of the Norman Empire. You must have made a mistake. How could my son be the enemy of the Norman Empire? He's just a student. Zhang Tai's mom exclaimed in terror. Look, we have our flags of the Norman Empire and the Ironhorn army before our door. After glancing over the flags before Zhang family's door, the soldiers of the Norman Empire looked a bit better. Yeah, my son has just completed his survival training in his last year at school, so how could he have become an enemy of the Ironhorn army? Zhang Tai's dad also argued loudly, his face turning pale. In the past few days, the Norman Empire had killed so many people in Blackhot City that everybody else were left terrified. All the insurgents and robbers that went against the Norman Empire's army had become corpses. Of course, all parents were afraid of their children being involved in these 2 groups the most, the enemy of the Norman Empire and potential insurrectionists who are hostile to the Ironhorn army. Either of them would easily make the children lose their lives. Seeing his parents becoming anxious, Zhang Tai was pained inside. I believe that the Norman Empire's soldiers are greatly different from thugs who only know how to set fires. I also believe that no matter how others frame me, I, as a loyal citizen of the Emperor of the Norman Empire, will deserve a fair treatment. After glancing over the soldiers beside him, Zhang Tai said calmly, I know you are taking orders, therefore, I don't want to argue with you here. However, before you take me away, please give me some time to talk with my parents. I've just completed the survival training and have not even entered my own home yet. Hearing Zhang Tai's words, a guy with the rank of sergeant cast another glance over Zhang Tai, who looked calm at this moment, and his anxious parents before giving a slight nod. You have only 2 minutes. Thanks. After saying this, Zhang Tai turned back and faced his parents. Dad and Mom, don't worry about me. I'll be okay. I have 3 huge wolves' hides in my luggage, which are my gifts for you. One for each of you and my elder sister-in-law. Who dares to bully my younger brother? With a loud scream, a shadow rushed out of the room inside. When Zhang Tai was talking with his parents, his elder brother Zhang Yang ran out the house. Seeing so many people surrounding them through the window, he had immediately grabbed his sword and rushed outside. At the sight of Zhang Yang's move, the soldiers of the Norman Empire also pulled out their long swords in a split second, holding him from moving away from the door. As a result, the present situation abruptly escalated. Along with Zhang Yang was his wife, whose belly was swollen due to pregnancy. At the sight of the scene in the courtyard, the woman's face immediately turned pale from fear. Due to the weapons being pulled out, not only those people passing by Zhang House, even the neighbors and onlookers hurriedly scurried away. Samira sneered and silently hid behind the soldiers. In an informal dress, Zhang Yang rushed out and put his long sword in front of his chest, aiming to protect Zhang Tai and their parents behind him. After that, he glared at those soldiers of the Norman Empire. What do you want to do here? Elder brother. Zhang Tai called as he put his hand on Zhang Yang's shoulder. He then forced a smile like this was nothing serious. Have you noticed that guy with a poisonous snake's head and triangular eyes? He's Samira. We bear grudges against each other. Now, he has seized the chance to frame me as the enemy of the Norman Empire. So these soldiers came here by orders of their superior, intending to take me away for an investigation. Don't worry. You know the best what kind of person I am. I'll be okay. Come on, put down your weapon. Look, you almost scared my elder sister-in-law. Zhang Tai looked relaxed as he moved his hand down along his elder brother's shoulder. Then he patted Zhang Yang's hand to comfort him before separating his fingers one by one like making pieces of rolled iron straight. Zhang Yang, as a LV5 warrior, was really shocked by how Zhang Tai forcefully took his long sword away from his hand, then handed it to the elder sister-in-law, who was standing by the door in fear, a twitchy smile on her lips. Elder sister-in-law, bring the weapon away. You, elder brother, and our parents should just go back inside. I'll come back in a couple of days. After saying this, Zhang Tai exchanged a serious look with his surprised elder brother, telling him his words through that look that could only be understood by brothers. I'll be okay, elder sister-in-law and our parents all need your care. It is not the right time for you and me to use force. Fine. After glancing over his family members and the surrounding soldiers of the Norman Empire, Zhang Yang gritted his teeth and gave a forced nod. Dad and Mom, trust me, I'll be okay. I'll be back in a few days. After comforting his dad and mom, Zhang Tai turned back to the soldiers and said, we can go now. Zhang Tai was not concerned about his safety at all as he had his own trump card. He believed that if he used that card, even if the soldiers of the Ironhorn army wouldn't know how to deal with him. This time, Samira had really driven Zhang Tai mad. Pleased with himself, Samira followed Zhang Tai and the soldiers of the Norman Empire. He looked at the youth in a commanding and gloating sneer, brat, I'll let you know the outcome of going against me. Zhang Tai didn't care about Samira at all. Instead, he just shared the whole story about how the enmity between him and Samira came to be in the Wild Wolf Castle. At the beginning, Samira was complacent, however, by the end, his face was becoming increasingly worse. In contrast, at the beginning, the soldiers of the Norman Empire didn't care about him at all and looked solemn, but by the end, some of them had been deeply attracted by the plot. A youth revealed Samira's conspiracy to cheat his classmates to go to the Crescent Prairie at the risk of their own lives. Framed by the bodyguards of Samira's business group, the youth used the darkness in the mining tunnel and escaped at a critical moment. Going against the bodyguards of Samira's business group. Being interrogated in the court and writing the blame put on him. Finally, a miraculous reversal. Samira was accused of being a spy of the Norman Empire and sent behind bars. Although it was a short story, after being described in an emotional way, it became pretty attractive, especially the part where he argued with Samira in the court. The story even had a happy end. Anyone who heard it would be intrigued by it. Don't believe in his nonsense, that brat is full of bullshit. He's just an insidious, poisonous snake and the enemy of the Norman Empire. When he was at school, he was extremely hostile to the Norman Empire. He's now become a terrorist. Samira shouted loudly, jumping up in the air behind them. Everybody could identify who's more like a poisonous snake. There are more than 20 teachers and thousands of students from the 4 schools who could be my witness. The Ministry of Internal Affairs of Black Hot City should have also preserved the detailed investigation result about this event. It cannot be changed by just moving your mouth, Zhang Tai replied calmly. Since this person went to the military administration to report you, it is the organization that wants to interrogate you. As Black Hot City is still under military administration, the guilty are interrogated by the criminal court of the Ironhorn Army. You will be brought there as well. Just remember you have the right to defend yourself. And we're just following the orders of our superior. After hearing Zhang Tai's story, the squad leader who was quiet the whole way opened his mouth and broke the rules to tell Zhang Tai why they had come to take him away. Because of the story, most of the soldiers turned more sympathetic and appreciative towards Zhang Tai instead of Samira. At the same time, they loosened their alertness and showed their contempt to Samira by ignoring him. However, they were ordered to catch Zhang Tai. No matter what they thought, they had no choice but to follow the order. After knowing how Samira had set him up, Zhang Tai started to plan inside. Right now, he feared most that Samira had someone backing him. But Samira had appealed to the military administration of the Norman Empire, which at least indicated that he didn't have a strong backing. Not in the affair to set Zhang Tai up anyway. Since if he had it, he would not have gone through all of these procedures, instead, just greeted his backer. This time, Samira planned to kill him using the hands of others. Son of AB*TCH. Soon after Zhang Tai was taken away, his elder brother Zhang Yang had hurriedly put on his formal clothes and went to find help. Of course, he had his own friends and acquaintances. In a short while, Zhang Yang had learned about what had happened between Zhang Tai and Samira, and learned the status of Samira, a LV3 material supplier of the military administration of Black Hot City. After Black Hot City was liberated, Samira was set free. With the fault of being a spy of the Norman Empire, he used his talent in socializing and obtained the trust of the military administration. Later, he won a license of a LV3 material supplier and slowly expanded his popularity. Hearing that Zhang Tai was escorted away by soldiers of the Norman Empire, Zhang Yang's friend immediately turned pale. Well, *T. I understand what that guy called Samira is planning to do. He doesn't want for Zhang Tai to be interrogated in the criminal court at all, instead, he just wants to put him behind bars. What? Zhang Yang also became tense. Now, the prison of Black Hot City is brimming with people. There are all sorts of murderers and major criminal offenders in there. If a 15-year-old youth put inside such a cell... Zhang Yang's friend stopped talking. Hearing his friend's explanation, Zhang Yang's face also turned pale. He also knew how dark the prison was. And right now, it was definitely the darkest one in the past dozens of years. All the rapists, murders, major criminal offenders, and a batch of criminals awaiting death penalty that had been caught by the Norman Empire's army were put together. Casualties happened every day in the prison of Black Hot City these days. The military administration of the Norman Empire would never care about what the criminals did inside. If a chubby boy like Zhang Tai was put inside with those... Zhang Yang almost passed out from the image in his head. Chapter 153, Dark Prison. The prison of Black Hot City was located outside the city. The prison's high walls were of course not used to protect those criminals. The prison was close to the West City Gate and was also within the coverage of the city defense weapons. Samira seemed to require more reassurance as he kept following Zhang Tai and the squad of soldiers past the West City Gate. After seeing the soldiers complete the handover procedures with the prison guards at the entrance, he then let out a sigh and sneered. Before arriving, Zhang Tai was led as he was, however, after the completion of the handover procedures, he was forced to put on handcuffs and anklets. The icy anklets kept making the sound of walla walla while being drawn through the ground when Zhang Tai moved. Besides that, Zhang Tai's anklets were uncomfortable. He had roughly 20 kilograms load due to the anklets and handcuffs. The prison of Black Hot City didn't seem to have changed a lot due to the end of the Coal, Steel, and Iron Federation's rule. Zhang Tai thought so since he found the guards wearing their old uniforms. How long will I stay here? Zhang Tai asked the sergeant who'd brought him here. 3 days. When the cases before you are dealt with, the military administration of the Norman Empire will arrange the criminal court to bring light to your case, the sergeant gave a patient reply. After that, Zhang Tai was pushed into the tall wall of the prison of Black Hot City. He turned back to see Samira sneering at him, from which he understood the man's delight in seeing his revenge plot succeed. The interrogation would start in 3 days. Why would Samira reveal such a smirk right now? Zhang Tai couldn't find the reason for it, so he calmed his heart and put it away. What's up with him? Entering through the iron gate of the gloomy and lofty wall, Zhang Tai saw a 40-old man in a dark red military uniform of the Norman Empire. He was the one asking the question. He wore the rank of a captain and stood on the stairs of a tower building near the iron gate. Although guards in the prison didn't change, one more military officer from the Norman Empire's military was dispatched here. That man was the real head of the entire prison. This guy was accused of being hostile to the Norman Empire. He's a potential security risk. The criminal court of the military administration is predicted to deal with his case in 3 days. Explaining this, one of the guards that escorted Zhang Tai and handed over a document to this man in a very pious way. He's accused of being hostile to the great Norman Empire? Is he a hot-blooded youth that still has good memories about the Andaman Alliance's rule? With these words, that middle-aged man glanced over Zhang Tai while revealing a shadow of a grin in the corner of his mouth. He then calmly ordered, "Take him to the largest room on floor 3, put him together with the murderers." "Yes, sir." The paths inside the prison were maze-like. On both sides of the 2 m wide path was a tall wall higher than 10 m, on the top of which was a wire net. The lofty tower buildings and watchtowers were connected with the tall walls. Like small fortresses, these buildings tightly surrounded the prison. Since the entire prison was in the leeward area of the industrial area of Blackhot City, Zhang Tai could smell coal ash with each breath. Nobody was doing exercises in the prison as no place was set for them to move about freely. The entire prison felt chilly, like a piece of stone that had been thrown here and weathered for dozens of years. After walking for less than 100 m inside, Zhang Tai had passed 3 iron gates. Each one was guarded by soldiers. After passing them, Zhang Tai would always feel the place get darker and becoming harder to breathe in due to the increasingly dingier smell. As Zhang Tai moved forward, the friction between his anklets and the chilly cement ground caused the sound of walla walla to reverberate through the maze-like aisles. Not until Zhang Tai was pushed into the underground paths that could barely be seen clearly without the help of the gas lamps on the walls did he realize that floor 3 was not above the ground, but below. "What's the crime of this brat?" asked a 60-odd-year man with completely gray hair guarding an iron gate. He stood up to open the gates with his key and wondered about Zhang Tai's circumstances when he saw him being pushed in. He was accused of being hostile to the Norman Empire. He's a potential saboteur. Captain Eugen ordered to put him in the club on floor 3. Hearing the words, that old man didn't say anything but gave Zhang Tai a sympathetic look as he opened the iron gate. After Zhang Tai was pushed in, the old man drew a cross in front of his own chest. Zhang Tai walked for a long time in the underground path. After passing 3 more iron gates and an S-shaped downward route, he was finally pushed into the underground floor 3. He walked the underground path with no natural light, and the sound produced by his anklets grew louder. The stink here could almost make people breathless. Beside Zhang Tai was a narrow cell. Hearing the sound of the anklets, all the prisoners inside the cell moved closer to the bars to have a look at the newcomer. The prisoners in the cell were more like monsters than humans. They all wore shabby clothes and looked dirty while also being extremely smelly. With their eyes wide open like wolves, they stretched out their thin hands through the iron bars, trying to scratch Zhang Tai. His arrival had made the place bustle with activity. "Give him to me, give him to me." Someone started to crazily rock the iron bars with his hands. "I will promise you anything if you want. Give the brat to me. Give him to me. Give him to me. Give him to me. Just one day, give this savory brat to me, just one day." Many prisoners stretched out their hands, trying to grab Zhang Tai. With eyes like those of hungry wolves fixed on Zhang Tai, the prisoners drooled while swearing. Some even growled like wild beasts, making Zhang Tai's face twist. There were no humans locked here, instead, there were mad animals with pus flowing out, or at least that's how Zhang Tai felt about this place. By now, he had faintly realized Samira's plot. Samira truly wanted to kill him with others' hands. The hands that Samira wanted to use were not those of the criminal court of the Norman Empire, but the damn prisons. Samira seemed to have predicted the outcome of sending him here, which cell he would end up in. Bored by the prisoners, the guards pulled out thin iron sticks from their waists and started to fiercely slash onto the hands stretching out through the iron bars. "This brat is going to be sent to the club." "You want to go with him?" a guard exclaimed as he slashed at the hands. After what the guard said, the cell quickly regained its previous calm. It was weird. At the same time, the hands were also pulled back. The long underground path was over 100 m. At the end of the path was a cell. The guard stopped before its entrance, ordering Zhang Tai to stand still so they could open his anklets and handcuffs. "Brat, don't blame us. We just follow the orders. If you want to blame someone, just blame the one who set you up to end up here." One of guards sighed when he opened Zhang Tai's anklets. "My son is also as old as you." With a calm expression, Zhang Tai replied as if he knew that he would be killed inside. "What if someone dies in there?" "Those locked here are the worst of the worst. No matter how many people would die on floor 3, nobody would care." A guard seemed to want to warn Zhang Tai. "Brat, if you can leave here alive, from then on you might be able to go sideways in Black Hot City." "I'm not a crab to prefer going sideways." Zhang Tai moved his limbs as he said. When Zhang Tai spoke, the guard had already opened the iron gate, allowing him to walk in. There was a second iron gate behind it. It seemed that this cell had stricter security measures. The switch of the second iron gate was set outside the first iron gate. It seemed that this cell called Club was dangerous enough that even the guards did not like to draw too close to it. After Zhang Tai walked through the first iron gate, the guards closed it before opening the second gate. "You'd better go inside by yourself. If you don't do so in half a minute by yourself, those people inside the cell will force you in. If that happens, you'll be even more miserable." A guard standing outside the second gate warned Zhang Tai. Zhang Tai walked inside with a calm expression. This cell was much larger than the other cells outside. It was at least as large as 2 classrooms at school. Over 20 people were scattered inside, sitting or lying. After passing through the first iron gate, but before entering through the second one, Zhang Tai took note of the situation inside the cell. Because of his arrival, the calm cell slowly started to reverberate from beast-like heavy breaths. After Zhang Tai entered through the second iron gate, it was locked by the guards outside. Soon after that, the guards left at an obviously faster pace than they had come. A gas lamp was on the wall of the aisle between the 2 gates, which was the only light source in the cell. Dark, gloomy, stinky, this was how this big cell called Club revealed itself to Zhang Tai. When the prisoners inside the cell could no longer hear the footsteps of the guards anymore, they slowly surrounded Zhang Tai from all corners of the dark cell. With red, twisted faces, they looked like wild wolves that had caught sight of a lamb. Chapter 154, A Dragon Driven Mad. From the wild beasts that surrounded Zhang Tai, breathing heavy, one shadow rushed towards him. Bang! Another faster shadow grabbed the first man's arm and punched him, sending him flying back through the air. "That brat is mine." The latter shadow was taller and stronger with a feel of tyranny. Behind him was a looming huge black spider, which indicated that this man was already a LV-6 fighter with battle chi. The moment this man stood up, all the other shadows that surrounded Zhang Tai stopped moving forward and lost their aggressive stances. "This brat is mine." That huge shadow pointed at Zhang Tai, who remained unchanged beside the entrance, and growled like pointing at a piece of food, "This chubby boy is mine, nobody else can steal him away from me. Ma Long, this will not depend on you." A humpbacked guy sneered with the voice Jaja as he slowly walked one step forward. He had scattered hair like a big mouse's and walked trying to keep its shoulders square. "You're truly powerful, but if we attack you together, you won't be our opponent either. Long time no see such an interesting toy." Another man with an ugly look whose nose seemed to have been cut off, leaving 2 flat bloody holes, walked a step forward. There was another huge black spider behind him. "I really want to smell this brat. This boy is not yours alone, he's ours." With these words, another person walked out of the crowd, his feet and hands dirty like a wild dog's, while his thirsty eyes fixed on Zhang Tai like a wolf's which had been hungry for several months. At the same time he licked his lips. "The blood of this kind of young man tastes the best. I don't care how you will play him. But you have to hand him to me before his last breath. If he dies, his blood would be hard to drink." "I need 5 hours. Ma Long firmly said, giving a concession after thinking for a while. "The last guy was played by you to death in merely 3 hours. This young man seems not that strong." The other people moved closer to Zhang Tai. "At most 1 hour. Additionally, you have to guarantee that this brat is still be alive in that time." "You have only 1 hour," the humpbacked old man fiercely argued. "If you don't agree, after a while, when the others hold you back, I'll break this brat's neck first so that he can easily die. If that happens, nobody will get to enjoy him." It was Zhang Tai's first time to be seen as a piece of meat. While arguing about how to share him, no one even glanced at him, most likely seeing him as already dead. Zhang Tai just gazed at these guys with an icy expression and gradually understood what kind of people they were. Even the worms on rotten corpses of the animals in the Crescent Prairie were cleaner than these guys. Those put behind the bars of this cell were not qualified to be called humans. Instead, they were stinky walking dead which could breathe in the darkest corners of the cell. They should have long been buried and turned into fertilizer. They should have never been allowed to continue living in this world. Zhang Tai's eyes over them gradually became icy and emotionless. Just now, these beasts had already reached an agreement. In the first hour, Zhang Tai belonged to that guy called Ma Long who had to ensure that Zhang Tai would still be alive at the end of the first hour and major organs should not be damaged. Once that hour would be over, the other guys decided on who had the right to use Zhang Tai, as well as to whom belonged each of his organs, even his blood as precisely as each second before he was tortured to death. After Zhang Tai was shared, besides Ma Long, all the others stood back to 7 to 8 m away from Zhang Tai and formed a circle of glittering eyes on him. At the same time, they forcefully swallowed their saliva, gasping from excitement. They prepared to watch Ma Long's performance for the next hour. This was a program that they had negotiated to spice up their daily lives. Ma Long was taller than 2 m. His developed muscles all over his body made him look like a small mountain. Being nude like all the other people in this cell, Ma Long just strode toward Zhang Tai. This length of time was a plenty for Zhang Tai to see that Ma Long had been castrated and was not a man anymore.
Heh, what have you seen?
Are you weirded out by it? Seemingly having realized that Zhang Tai had noticed that he was castrated, Ma Long's face twisted abnormally. That F*King woman was very beautiful. In order to F*ck her, I killed her man, threw her kid onto the ground to death. After that, I bundled her at her home and F*ked her for 1 month. 1 month later, she became docile. There was a time when I took a rest after F*king her, and she expressed her desire to clean my D*ck using her tongue. I trusted her. She then bit off my P*nis. In revenge, I twisted off her neck and scooped my thing from her mouth. Pitifully, I couldn't reconnect it as she had not only bit off my thing but also chewed it into pieces. So why are you still alive? Why didn't they hang you when you were arrested? Zhang Tai calmly asked. They didn't know about it. The women who were F*ked and killed by me were not able to appeal to the court. Ma Long revealed a weird smirk. I was put inside because of another case. They just took me as a common major criminal offender. So they let me live by sentencing me to life imprisonment. You know what? When I came here, I found that even if I had no penis, I could still do a lot of interesting things. As long as you're docile, I'll let you survive for a couple more days. Saying this, Ma Long stretched out his hand as wide as Zhang Tai's thigh, intending to grab Zhang Tai's head. Seeing Ma Long being ready to start his performance, all the other walking dead revealed various weird smirks. There was a sharp difference between the figures of Zhang Tai and Ma Long as the latter would roughly be 3 times the size of the other. Zhang Tai then gripped Ma Long's wrists to stop it from moving forward even a bit. Sensing that, Ma Long's face immediately turned pale and he started to intensify his strength with a shadowy black spider behind him. However, Zhang Tai's hand remained still. Gradually, Ma Long's face started to twist and sweat began forming on his forehead. As Ma Long increased his strength, he also started to trigger his battle chi. Since he felt no battle chi on Zhang Tai, he thought that once his battle chi invaded Zhang Tai's body, the boy's life or death would be at his discretion. However, Ma Long found that the moment his battle chi reached Zhang Tai's hand, it would immediately evaporate like when rain and fog met magma. Ma Long's face greatly distorted as he found a hidden strength, instead of battle chi or transformed strength in Zhang Tai's body. That hidden strength formed into a string in Zhang Tai's hand. Akin to having hit an iron wall, Ma Long's battle chi could barely enter an inch. How could there be such a hidden strength? How could this be? Ma Long exclaimed as if having been slashed by a machete. At the same time, Zhang Tai's hand was also gradually gripping more tightly, increasing its force. All the onlookers in the cell saw that something was not right. No way, how could Ma Long be weaker than the brat? Ma Long finally could not stand it anymore and used his another hand to punch at Zhang Tai's head.
Goody!
With glittering eyes, Zhang Tai kicked Ma Long's lower body using his right leg before the other's punch had reached his head. This kick was rightly named Cannon Leg in Ironblood Fist skillbook. It moved upward from Ma Long's crotch. The moment Zhang Tai hit there, his Ironblood hidden strength on the foot broke out. Hit by Zhang Tai's amazing kicking force, the 2m tall Ma Long was sent flying back like a balloon with a terrifying sound of breaking bones. His head hit the 3m high ceiling of the cell, making the sound of kacha. Spraying fresh blood everywhere, Ma Long fell down to the ground. After falling, he was as soft as a piece of mud that had no breath of life anymore. Zhang Tai's kick was really terrifying. Like having been pinched on their necks, the wild beasts in the cell stopped all the weird voices and gasps in a split second. Ma Long just died like this? The LV6 Ma Long had been kicked to death by this youth just like that? Since they all knew Ma Long's real fighting force, the wild beasts were scared and started to move back. It was hard to say what Zhang Tai was thinking about. He just gazed at Ma Long's dead body before shaking his head. Zhang Tai then raised his head and glanced over the other beasts in the cell. Was it more frightening to be surrounded by these scumbags than by more than 300 wild wolves? He walked towards these guys. Since Ma Long has died, nobody can hurt you in this cell, the humpbacked old man said, moving back. Zhang Tai ignored his words, just walking towards him. You can do whatever you want here. The humpbacked man continued to move back. Zhang Tai ignored his words, just walking towards him. We can all follow your orders. Zhang Tai ignored his words, just walking towards him.
Go.
The moment the humpbacked old man shouted, for shadows charged at Zhang Tai, the humpbacked old man's shadowy black spider appearing almost at the same time. Zhang Tai consecutively punched out 4 fists in a split second. At the same time, 4 shadows were sent flying back in the air and fell to the ground. 3 of the 4 did not pick themselves up again, while the humpbacked man was bleeding and staring at Zhang Tai in an astonished kind of way. He felt his guts being broken into pieces by a surging strength. Before death, he growled, "Hidden strength, how could that be?" At the same time, a mouthful of blood mixed with his broken guts sprayed out from his mouth, leaving no breath anymore. A LV4 warrior could form hidden strength, but not every LV4 warrior. Even some higher-level warriors could not form it. Level represented the number of burning points ignited and how a person's physical potential was tapped. Hidden strength represented how a person's strength and physical potential tapped chose to act. Although steel and iron could be used to produce weapons, not all the steel and iron was used for weapons. Many people who owned the materials could not use them to produce weapons. Likewise, people who had formed hidden strength indicated that they had produced their physical potential and strength into cutlery and swords and other fighting tools. Zhang Tai had already formed hidden strength, which was not the common kind but iron blood hidden strength. Somehow, even if Captain Kurlin had said that less than 1 out of 100 people can form hidden strength, on the first day Zhang Tai reached LV4, he had already sensed this wholly new strength hidden in his body. Of course, he could easily master the iron blood hidden strength. Zhang Tai had learned that the largest amount of wild wolf 7 strength fruits that could be produced on the small tree was 9. When the 3-month survival training came to an end, Zhang Tai had already become a LV4 warrior. Besides, he had formed hidden strength of iron blood fist skill and had the full strength of 9 wild wolves in his body. At this time, the power of the iron blood fist skill in his hand had also startled Zhang Tai himself. From now on, the imperial battle skill of the Norman Empire started to radiate its brilliance in a wholly new way. Besides Zhang Tai, nobody knew that he was no longer the same person as 3 months ago. "We can all follow your orders," someone shouted from the back of the cell. "You parasitic worms in the darkness, you all have to die today." Zhang Tai's killing intent immediately exploded. "If I let you survive, it'll definitely be the biggest blasphemy to the human clan." In the dark cell, more shadows charged at Zhang Tai with weird screams. Using iron blood fist skill with ease, Zhang Tai punched again and again, the growls of a tiger resounding after his every more. 2 minutes later, the growling punches stopped. The cell regained its peace. After patting his sleeves, Zhang Tai found a semi-clean place beside the iron gate and took a seat. With eyes closed, he started to polish the 4th burning point on his spine. 1, 1, 2, 3. On the Fibonacci's golden spiral that represented the path of evolution, Zhang Tai had moved 4 steps forward. He was going to take the 5th step. In the future, each step forward would be many times harder than before. However, Zhang Tai was not afraid. For him, everything was just a matter of time as he had the castle of black iron and that small tree inside. 5, 8, 13, 21, 34. A question flashed across Zhang Tai's mind. I wonder what the world after LV9 is like? Chapter 155, Reversal. Tea was the longest evening that Zhang family had ever lived through, even without Zhang Tai's elder brother daring to tell his parents about the dark message he received from outside. The lofty walls of the prison of Black Hot City were definitely like a formidable natural chasm for Zhang Tai's family.
3 days.
Zhang Yang had learned that Zhang Tai could not get out of the prison for 3 days. It was unknown whether he could hold on for such a long time inside. Zhang Yang's last beacon of hope came from the amazing strength Zhang Tai revealed when forcefully taking his sword away from his hand. Zhang Yang didn't know how Zhang Tai could become so powerful. However, this amazing strength became his sole hope for Zhang Tai's survival. In this age, strength was the real power. A powerful man could survive the prison of Black Hot City. Early the next morning, before Zhang Yang had left home, his dad gave him a heavy purse.
This is our savings. Take it to make sure you bring Zhang Tai back home safe.
Taking the purse, Zhang Yang knew that it contained all of his parents' savings. So he carefully put it in his bag, nodding. The moment Zhang Yang walked out the door, he saw several soldiers of the Norman Empire in dark red military uniforms. They were looking at Zhang's door plate, seemingly intending to knock at the door.
"Hello, is this Zhang Tai's home?" one of them asked, seeing a man similar to Zhang Tai walk out.
In a very bad mood at the sight of the red-skinned dogs, Zhang Yang became infuriated and shouted loudly, "Wasn't Zhang Tai caught and taken away by you yesterday?
What are you here for today? Who dared to catch Zhang Tai?"
After hearing Zhang Yang's exclamation, the soldier looked very startled, his expression turning gloomy.
"Could you tell me what happened to Zhang Tai?"
"I'm his friend, Salve."
"You're Zhang Tai's friend?"
Zhang Yang stared at this red-skinned dog, no, the person who claimed to be Zhang Tai's friend, and became confused. When had Zhang Tai become acquainted with the soldiers of the Norman Empire?
"Yeah, Zhang Tai once saved my life.
I knew he would come back home yesterday after the survival training, so I especially come here today to thank him. Considering the special case when he saved me, I had no chance to thank him at the time." At the sight of the soldier of the Norman Empire saying words like that, Zhang Yang immediately became spirited. Seizing Salve's hand, he explained, "Zhang Tai was arrested, hurry up, go to the military administration together with me. If it's too late, he might have already been killed."
"What happened?" "Someone framed him, wanting to kill him."
At Zhang Yang's words, not only Salve, even all the other surrounding soldiers became irritated. If the savior of a glorious soldier of the Ironhorn army was set up in Black Hot City, it was definitely an aggressive maneuver that humiliated the honor of the entire Ironhorn army.
"Let's go, we will go to the bastards of the military administration."
It was truly not a good experience being in the dark cell. After only one evening inside, Zhang Tai already felt like he'd lost his nose since he could no longer smell anything. Besides, there really were too many fleas inside the cell, all of which would never care how many wolves' strength you had. Zhang Tai had managed last night's time very well. Besides polishing his burning points, he had spent the remaining time in the trouble reappearance fruits. Last night, he had died 4 times inside. Each time, he would be besieged by more than 500 wild wolves, over 20 huge wolves, 10 odd human-eating varanids, and several lions. Zhang Tai would always use the Iron Blood Fist skills to kill them. Each time, he would exert his full hidden strength. However, he couldn't yet kill an enemy with one punch. Under constant fighting and killing, Zhang Tai's wounds also gradually increased while his strength declined. At the lowest point of his physical strength, he would always be torn to shreds by the remaining wild beasts. The practice in the trouble reappearance fruits was both painful and happy. Besides not really dying in the trouble reappearance fruits, all the pains that Zhang Tai experienced in there were the same as the ones he would feel in reality. He had died 4 times inside, and each time he felt like suffering from a cruel punishment. He would bear over 100 wounds all over his body before being torn to shreds by the wild beasts. What made Zhang Tai reassured, though, was that after leaving the trouble reappearance scenes, he would not suffer from the pains anymore. They would disperse immediately like tides and dreams. If not, Zhang Tai wouldn't really be able to brave experiencing the pains time after another. The happiness of cultivating in the trouble reappearance fruits could only be understood by people who had experienced it. The several hours in the trouble reappearance scenes last night, many people would have wasted them by having dinner. However, Zhang Tai had experienced the tough challenges that many people might not encounter for their whole lives. Through such challenges, he had rapidly improved himself in all aspects. In the past days, as Zhang Tai had increased his frequency of cultivation in the trouble reappearance fruits, he had also found many new features. For example, an activated trouble reappearance scene could only last 3 hours at most. After this time, the energy that supports the entire trouble reappearance scene would weaken, which would lead to the collapse of the entire trouble reappearance scene. Zhang Tai had found this when he tried to match speed and endurance with the wild wolves. He activated the trouble reappearance scene of Crescent Prairie. After that, he dashed away, followed by several hundreds of wild wolves. Zhang Tai kept running for 3 hours. However, the wild wolves still failed to catch up with him. Then Zhang Tai received a notice before the trouble reappearance scene broke into light spots and disappeared. This was the first rule of the trouble reappearance fruits that Zhang Tai had found. The second thing was that the more living beings he placed in the scenes and the higher level they were, the more spiritual energy he needed to inject into the trouble reappearance scene to activate it. Additionally, during the activation, what consumed the largest amount of spiritual energy was not the living beings that needed to be activated, but the scene. Zhang Tai had tried and found the following facts. When he activated 1 or 2 wolves, he could activate the trouble reappearance fruits 23 times at most. When he activated roughly 50 to 100 wolves, he could activate the trouble reappearance fruits for roughly 8 to 10 times. Like now, when he activated over 500 wolves and other species inside, he could only activate it 4 times. The abundant spiritual energy that had surged by 7 times felt a bit awkward now. As sunlights or moonlight could not be seen in the dark cell, what reminded Zhang Tai of the arrival of the next morning was his biological clock. It was not a good feeling to sleep with a lot of corpses in the same cell. However, Zhang Tai felt that these guys could not even match beasts. He preferred to see the corpses as the bodies of wild wolves or something even more disgusting. After waking up, he casually circled around the room before starting to cultivate a kung fu that he had created these days, bareback iron body skill. He had created it when he saw a wild bear hitting a big tree using his back so as to pick the fruits that dropped off from the tree. Since iron body fruit required constant strikes on his body, and he could not serve as a flesh bag in the Iron Thorns fighting club, enlightened by wild bears, Zhang Tai had considered to hit something hard using his back to stimulate iron body fruits to ripening. To tell the truth, this method really worked. With this kung fu, Zhang Tai turned the negative strikes into positive strikes, the latter having a miraculous effect. Zhang Tai had practiced this kung fu for 2 weeks and had stimulated 3 iron body fruits to becoming ripe. Similar to how his body responded after eating the previous iron body fruits, when he ate the latest ones, he would still have a stomachache and would also excrete some black things. However, the last 2 times, Zhang Tai found that the black things were becoming fewer. Besides, a wisp of icy energy from the iron body fruits penetrated through his muscles, which felt pretty comfortable. Zhang Tai now found a plain cement wall that was vertical to the ground. Standing with his back against the wall, he kept his shoulders square and his feet open like the Chinese character Ba. He kept his heels roughly 40 centimeters away from the wall. Once the preparations were done, he started to lean back and used his back to strike against the wall. After each strike, he would stand still and wait for the dust on the wall to fall down to the ground. Like this, Zhang Tai struck against the wall at 2-second frequency. This resulted in the entire underground floor 3 starting to reverberate with the loud bang 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 sounds. As Zhang Tai had 9 wolves' strengths in his body and the strength as a LV4 warrior, he was definitely more powerful than a huge bear. The sound was so surprising that many criminals were woken up. When they found that the origin of the sound was the terrifying club where the brat had been thrown into last day, all the criminals became quiet. If this sound originated from there, it would not be strange, since nobody knew what perverted things were carried out in that cell. The guards who had sent Zhang Tai in last night came here very early this morning. Usually, they would never come back so early. They did it because of Zhang Tai. There was an unwritten rule in the prison: it's normal to see dead people in the prison, and nobody would care about that. However, if the people die too miserably, like being torn to pieces, that might bring a lot of trouble to the officers there. This was a tacit agreement between the prisoners and the prison officers. But since the club in floor 3 was too special, those perverts inside wouldn't even let go of corpses. The guards didn't dare to keep Zhang Tai inside for too long. After one night's torture, the boy would have been killed for certain. So before his corpse was made too disgusting, which might bring some trouble to the prison officers, they should get it out of the cell and report what had happened last night to the warden. The moment the guards arrived at the dark floor 3, they heard the terrifying striking sounds that were reverberating from the end of the underground tunnel. It felt like the entire floor 3 was quaking. The sound came from the club. Hearing it, the guards' face immediately turned pale and they hurriedly ran towards the end of the tunnel. When they saw the scene in that club, they were all dumbfounded. the youth that should have been a corpse last night was casually striking the wall with his back. After seeing them, that youth halted, stopping the sound. "Morning," he even greeted them. "You're not dead?" one of the guards cried out, like having seen a ghost. "My life's so good, why would I die?" Holding the bars of the iron gate, the youth then added, Could you please get me out of here first? It doesn't feel good to stay with a pile of corpses." Chapter 156, Those Looked Upon by the Battle God. The criminals in Floor 3 were showed a good performance for free this morning. Soon after the guards came intending to take away Zhang Tai's corpse, they hurriedly rushed outside, faces pale. 10 minutes after the guards hurried up to the outside, more people rushed down. This time, not only the guards, even the armored soldiers of the Norman Empire that resided in the prison arrived with long pikes in hands. They all looked pretty solemn. The booming tidy footsteps reverberating through the ground of the tunnel of Floor 3 forced all the criminals to not even take a deeper breath. Everybody knew that a big event had happened in that club where the most terrifying and perverted scumbags resided. The warden who was appointed by the Norman Empire arrived to the Floor 3 too. He was a captain of the Norman Empire with a rigid expression. Since taking over this prison, the warden had only been to Floor 3 once. When he left here last time, he looked like so disgusted, like having stepped on a pile of bull's sh*t with his expensive crocodile hide shoes. From then onward, he didn't come here again. However, today that warden came here. Given the flustered guards who had hurriedly rushed upwards just now, the criminals knew something very severe had happened. All the criminals in Floor 3 then kept quiet with their heads stretched in the direction of the club. Zhang Tai just waited in the cell calmly, listening to the booming footsteps of soldiers, produced by the anti-riot fighting boots. Soon after, he saw a squad of soldiers of the Norman Empire in dark red military uniforms rushing inside, closely followed by the guards and the middle-aged man with the rank of captain of the Norman Empire whom he had met when he entered the prison. Coming to the front of the iron gate outside the club, the captain of the Norman Empire ordered with a cold expression, "Open it." "Warden Quinn, this person is very dangerous, you don't have to." The guards nearby wanted to persuade him not to enter the cell. Unexpectedly, this drove the warden even more infuriated. "Open it." The growl made the entire underground tunnel of Floor 3 boom. No soldier of the Norman Empire is afraid of death. "This is my prison, my place. Nowhere will I dare not to enter." "Yes, sir." The guards were really shocked and their faces turned pale. They hurriedly pulled out of the key to open the iron gate outside the club. At this time, the warden kept glancing at Zhang Tai while Zhang Tai was also glancing back at him. Zhang Tai looked very calm instead of being irritable or arrogant. When the door was opened, the warden entered with his head raised. He stood still before the second iron gate, closely followed by several soldiers who held up lamps for him. When the lamps crowded in the partition between the two doors, the cell brightened up. Under the lamplight, everybody could see the scene in the club, which forced them to take a deep breath. Besides Zhang Tai, the entire cell was covered with corpses fallen in weird ways. This scene was extremely shocking. For guards who were familiar with what kind of people were put in here, what they saw was akin to an innocent lamb standing safe among a pile of dead wild wolves. It was really subversive. When the second iron gate was opened, the warden entered, followed by more soldiers of the Norman Empire. They surrounded Zhang Tai with their weapons aimed at him. At this moment, nobody would care about the air quality anymore. "What happened here last night?" the warden asked, looking Zhang Tai in the eyes. "They discussed how to kill me, the process of which sounded very painful and disgraceful. I didn't want to die that way. So when they attacked me, in order to survive, I had to kill them all." "You?" The warden looked more solemn. "If you don't believe me, you can also think that they committed a suicide. No matter what, these guys were perverts and lunatics. I don't care about your opinion." Zhang Tai stretched out his palms and shrugged. "I felt that as a good civilian who follows the laws of the Norman Empire, I don't have to tell a lie to the military officer." The warden didn't speak anymore. Instead, he took a lamp from one soldier's hand and walked closer to Ma Long's corpse. Before him, the warden squatted down and started to carefully check him. Zhang Tai had kicked Ma Long's crotch, breaking the latter's hip bone and pelvis into pieces. Besides that, Ma Long's head was also crushed into pieces. These wounds could easily be identified. After merely a simple look, the warden had understood how Ma Long was killed last night. The youth really had an amazing strength. He could kick Ma Long and send him flying in the air, crashing his head into the concrete ceiling of the cell. What great strength would it take for him to complete this? However, what caught the warden's attention was not the amazing strength but how Ma Long's guts were thrown into disarray by a terrifying hidden strength. There were some weird mulberry and chrysanthemum-like spirals on Ma Long's abdomen. After taking notice of those spirals, the warden was stunned. He seemed to not believe it as he kept blinking in hopes to see something else when he opened his eyes next time. He even took off his pair of gloves and touched the skin of Ma Long's abdomen to ensure that it was not a tattoo or something else. His face twisted, the warden picked himself up from the ground and quickly moved to another corpse with the lamp in hand. He took a careful look over the second corpse and found the same mulberry and chrysanthemum-like spirals on the neck, smaller than the ones on Ma Long's abdomen. On the third corpse, the humpbacked man, the warden found the same weird spirals on the chest. After that, he didn't continue since his heart was full of fury. Not at Zhang Tai but the military administration of the Black Hot City. He was furious at the bastards of the military administration for having sent a person who was gazed at and had received a potential favor from the battle god, forming hidden strength into the prison. Any person who had gained the attention of the battle god should not suffer from such a mistreatment. This kind of mistreatment was definitely profaning the glory of the battle god and challenging the authority of the imperial household of the Norman Empire. The emperor was also the pope of the battle god cult, which was the national religion of the Norman Empire and the only belief of its army. In the Norman Empire, those who could catch the attention of the battle god should not be tried in the secular courts but in the judging palace of the battle god cult of the Norman Empire. Even in wartime, judgment on this kind of person could also only be dealt by the judging priests in the judging palace. In the entire Black Hot City now, there wasn't a single judging priest from the judging palace. There were only 5 of them in entirety. Of course, they would not casually appear in poor cities like Black Hot City. The hidden strength of Iron Blood Fist skill was very ferocious and aggressive, so when it hit a person, it could almost force the chi and blood out in some parts and small areas of their body, leaving such weird mulberry and chrysanthemum-like spirals. This was why it was the symbol of the hidden strength. Those spirals could never be imitated as they formed from inside to outside. When the battle god caught sight of someone, he would present the bloody chrysanthemum to that person. This was the doctrine of the battle god cult. Realizing that he had almost made a big mistake, the warden also felt very terrified. Even if Zhang Tai could not threaten him with his current power, his real force represented the deep-rooted traditions and systems of the entire Norman Empire and the battle god cult, which was most respected. Under the amazed gazes of the pile of soldiers and guards, the warden, who was checking the dead bodies, suddenly knelt down and pulled out his emblem of the battle god on a necklace and kissed it. After that, he put his palms together devoutly and started to mumble. Almighty battle god, please forgive me for my careless mistake. I have thrown a person under your gaze into such a dirty place. The only thing that made me lucky was that your glory had prevented even such a dirty place from being profaned by those dirty bastards Abhibhavana. Although the guards didn't know Captain Quinn's intention by praying, the moment the soldiers of the Norman Empire heard it, their faces immediately turned pale. At the same time, they all moved one step back and cast curious eyes to Zhang Tai. Not until then did Zhang Tai understand that no matter how paramount he had considered the position of the Iron Blood Fist skill in the Norman Empire, his thoughts were still not great enough. Captain Curlin had told him that Iron Blood Fist was called Battle God's Fist in the army of the Norman Empire, and anyone who could master it would be powerful and rich, gaining everyone's respect. It seemed that what Captain Curlin had told him was true. The warden who had intended to throw Zhang Tai into the pile of perverts and corpse maniacs with an icy expression last night had completely changed his attitude now. According to the laws of the Norman Empire, any citizen who can form hidden strength of the battle god's fist cannot be judged by the secular courts anymore. So please forgive me for my rudeness yesterday. You are not suitable to stay here anymore. However, it was the military administration of Black Hot City which sent you here. It means that you have committed a severe crime. So I can only hand you over to Colonel Leibniz, the supreme commander of Unicorn Army in Black Hot City. He will determine your destiny, the warden Quinn explained to Zhang Tai before ordering his soldiers to put away their weapons. I warn you, although the Norman Empire grants some privileges to those who have mastered the battle god's fist, if you want to escape, I won't mind showing you some bitterness. I am an innocent citizen of the Norman Empire, the first able youth who practiced and embraced the barbarous survival training system of the Norman Empire, ending up set up. Of course I won't escape. After saying that, Zhang Tai revealed a smile and 2 rows of glittering white teeth. Then, can we go out of here now? It really smells bad here. Zhang Tai walked onto the tunnel in floor 3 once again. The other criminals on both sides of the tunnel became really dumbfounded, as if having seen a ghost, as they saw Zhang Tai walk out of the club where he had stayed the night without even losing a hair. What had happened? Did those scumbags become innocent or what? Several minutes after Zhang Tai had left the underground floor 3, the guards started to take the corpses out of the club using barrows, one after another. Everybody then knew what had happened. Magic Beast Ma Long's corpse was on the barrow. Crazy Dog's corpse was on the barrow. Humpback's corpse was on the barrow. Vampire Jack's corpse was on the barrow. All the corpses were carried out of the club by a barrow. Thinking of that youth who had not even lost one hair, all the other criminals started to feel chilly. Undoubtedly, the one who could turn these scumbags into corpses was greater than them. Many had even thought of this youth as a defenseless fatty yesterday. They would have never imagined that he was a human-sized magic beast who could engulf humans without even spitting out their bones. Chapter 157, You've been recruited. Previously, Zhang Tai had dreamed of sitting in a car numerous times. However, he had never imagined that the first car he sat in would belong to the Norman Empire's Ironhorn army. As the head of the prison of Black Hot City, Captain Quinn owned a private car, a Mountain Cat SUV produced by the Norman Empire. Compared to the common steam-driven vehicles in the market, Mountain Cat SUV had a higher chassis, stronger off-road performance, and stronger driving force. Although also being driven by steam power, military vehicles had better configurations and performances than common civilian vehicles. The steam power units equipped on this Mountain Cat could allow this vehicle to maintain a speed of 80 km per hour even in the wild. Previously, Captain Quinn was worried that Zhang Tai would seek a chance to escape or to bring him trouble. However, after entering the SUV, he found that Zhang Tai's whole attention was put on the vehicle to the point of even ignoring him. As time passed by, the two people in the car got more acquainted with each other. Captain Quinn even swore at Zhang Tai, Black Hot City's being rustic numerous times, gradually loosening his alert. How can such a guy be an enemy and a potential insurrectionist? Captain Quinn started to doubt the crime laid at Zhang Tai's feet. This guy doesn't look like he's hostile to the Norman Empire. Though based on Zhang Tai's age and looks, Captain Quinn was really confused as why Battle God would choose him. Iron blood hidden strength. Less than 1 out of 100 elite soldiers of the Ironhorn army can form it. How could this rusty Black Hot City form it? Captain Quinn started to sigh inside as he really couldn't understand it. Could it be the favor of the Battle God? Captain Quinn was at a loss. Zhang Tai was driven directly to the place where the headquarters of No. 39 Division under the flagship of the Ironhorn Army was located in Black Hot City. 2 months ago, this place was the general headquarters of the city guard. The military residence was strictly defended. There were dozens of various vehicles parked outside. Besides these iron and steel beasts, there were many Ironhorn beasts that Zhang Tai had witnessed several weeks ago in the Crescent Prairie. Of course, the most numerous guardians here were soldiers of the Norman Empire in dark red military uniforms. Captain Quinn parked his vehicle directly outside the entrance of the headquarters building. He then jumped off and greeted a second lieutenant who was standing next to the building. After exchanging for a short while in quiet voices, the lieutenant cast a glance at Zhang Tai and quickly left. In less than half a minute, that second lieutenant came back together with 4 tough-looking soldiers. After handing Zhang Tai over to them, Captain Quinn left. Soon after, Zhang Tai was escorted by the 4 tough-looking soldiers and the second lieutenant into a cell marked with words "Interrogation Room" on floor 1 of a building beside the headquarters. After closing the iron gate of the interrogation room, the 4 soldiers stood outside, leaving Zhang Tai alone in the cell. No matter what, the environment here was 100 times better than in the black cell of that smelly underground floor 3. The sunlight came in through a narrow window 2 meters off the ground. Standing under it, Zhang Tai kept his eyes closed and head raised up. He seemed to be enjoying calmly basking in the warm rays of the sun. If everything went well, the mixed division of 25,000 people led by Colonel Leibniz under the flagship of the Norman Empire's Ironhorn Army would be stationed in Black Hot City. Was that the prelude to the chaotic world that Zaram had mentioned? Thinking of his parents' terrified expressions when he was taken away yesterday, Zhang Tai felt painful inside once again. When Captain Quinn returned to the prison of Black Hot City, he found several new faces, one among which was a bastard of the military administration of Black Hot City, while the others were from the scouts' camp. The bastard from the military administration looked embarrassed while the guys from the scouts' camp looked infuriated. At the sight of Captain Quinn, the newcomers hurriedly saluted him. "What are they doing in my place?"
Because of Zhang Tai's affair, Captain Quinn didn't look good. So he asked without any emotion, "What's up?" "Sorry to bother you, Captain Quinn. Yesterday, the military administration had someone escort a Chinese youth called Zhang Tai here. There might be a misunderstanding, so we come here to take him away." Saying this, the second lieutenant took out the authorization certificate signed by the military administration and gave it to Captain Quinn. "Sorry, this person is not in the prison anymore," Captain Quinn said without any mood to be bothered anymore. "What? Is he dead?" A young soldier of Scouts camp moved one step forward, almost falling down onto the ground. Talking with a superior at such a short distance was forbidden under normal circumstances. However, this time, looking at this emotional young soldier who even had a wound on his leg, Captain Quinn didn't care about his move and asked out of curiosity, "Do you know each other?" Seemingly having realized his rudeness, Salve became a bit more clear-minded. "Sir, that youth saved my life several days ago. Because I was carrying out a task at that time, I didn't have a chance to thank him. However, when I visited his home today, I was told he was set up and sent to the prison." Salve briefly explained what had happened. "Is the brat in the headquarters?" "Yes, he is." Colonel Leibniz found this story very interesting. A youth who was born and grew up in a remote place like Black Hot City could gain the attention of the battle god and became close with people in his division. The entire affair was funny. When he went back to Nordenberg, he would definitely use this as a good topic. The noble women in Nordenberg greatly enjoyed listening to these kinds of interesting stories full of legendary events in remote places. Thinking of this, Colonel Leibniz picked himself up from his chair and said, "Let's go for a look." Several minutes later, he met Zhang Tai. In Zhang Tai's eyes, this was a 50-odd-year man with a big abdomen, half-gray hair, and a mustache, wearing a military uniform. Colonel Leibniz only asked Zhang Tai one question. "Tell me, how could you ignite 3 burning points and form the Iron Blood Hidden Strength in 2 months?" This question was very straightforward. When Zhang Tai was chased down by the wild wolves and jumped into the black hole, he was only a LV-1 warrior. Nobody knew when he had ignited his shrine burning point. Therefore, the only fact that could be certified was that Zhang Tai had ignited 3 burning points and improved by 3 levels in 2 months. Knowing that he would face this question sooner or later, Zhang Tai had long prepared his answer. "When I started the Loner's survival training, I had already almost ignited the 2nd burning point. On the 5th day since I started my Loner's survival training, it rained heavily in the Wild Wolf Valley. When I hid from the rain, I was struck by a lightning bolt. After waking up, I found that I could ignite my burning points faster than before, while also having a greater strength. Besides, I could improve the Iron Blood Fist that I had been cultivating at much quicker pace." Zhang Tai's answer made Colonel Leibniz very satisfied. In his eyes, the only reasonable explanation for Zhang Tai's affair would be related to the series of physical mutations and weird abilities after being struck by a lightning bolt. This was not rare. In medicine, those guys having weird abilities after being struck by a lightning bolt even had an exclusive appellation, post-lightning stroke savant syndrome. Colonel Leibniz felt that Zhang Tai's reply made the story that he was going to tell even more interesting. Although a low proportion of people could form Iron Blood Hidden Strength across the entire No. 39 Division, there were still roughly 200 soldiers who had formed it. So it was not that exceptional for Zhang Tai to form Iron Blood Hidden Strength. ALV-4 warrior, even if having experienced something strange and formed Iron Blood Hidden Strength, would still not be able to attract the attention of Colonel Leibniz, so the colonel didn't really favor him because he had formed Blood Iron Hidden Strength at such a young age. However, in the entire Norman Empire's army, no commander or general would refuse having one more soldier being favored and looked upon by the battle god. "Lucky brat, I declare that you have been recruited by the Norman Empire's Ironhorn army. According to the laws of the Norman Empire, you've become a member of the No. 39 Division. In the Norman Empire's army, all the lucky dogs favored by the battle god will start their brilliant service career from the rank of 2nd lieutenant. Therefore, you are now the youngest 2nd lieutenant of No. 39 Division." Colonel Leibniz felt that he had really come up with a great idea, which could make his story in Nordenberg even more splendid and attractive. Besides, it could make him greater in the eyes of the noblewomen and prevent others from finding faults in him. After talking to Zhang Tai, he turned his head and ordered his advisor, "You, take him to finish the entry formalities in the afternoon. Send him to the Iron Blood camp and find some tough guys for him. Don't let this brat die in his first battle." Finished, Colonel Leibniz didn't care about Zhang Tai's dumbfounded look and turned, intending to leave. However, when he arrived at the door, he seemed to have thought of something since he turned back and asked, "Go, lucky brat, what's your name?" "Zhang Tai." Colonel Leibniz then mumbled his name twice, seemingly intending to remember it. The colonel went far off in the distance, but Zhang Tai was still stunned. Second lieutenant, he had become a second lieutenant of the Norman Empire. Cough. Cough. Upon hearing the coughs of the advisor left by Colonel Leibniz, Zhang Tai recovered his composure. Chapter 158, Iron Blood Second Lieutenant. In the next 10 minutes, with the guidance of the advisor left by Colonel Leibniz, Zhang Tai took a round of the offices of the headquarters of No. 39 Division. He also filled out some forms so all the staff in the headquarters learned that Colonel Leibniz had recruited a birdie officer today. It was a birdie born and grown in Black Hot City and a lucky dog who was struck by lightning bolts, which resulted in him suffering from post-lightning stroke savant syndrome at the age of 15. Since Black Hot City now belonged to the Norman Empire and Zhang Tai was a citizen of the Norman Empire who was over 15, according to the laws and traditions, Colonel Leibniz had the right to recruit him to the army. Additionally, across the entire Norman Empire, anyone who had formed the Iron Blood hidden strength would at least gain the rank of second lieutenant if they joined the army. So Zhang Tai became the first birdie soldier that No. 39 Division had recruited in Black Hot City and the youngest second lieutenant in the entire division. As was expected, Zhang Tai's affair became a hot topic for military officers in the headquarters of No. 39 Division. The thing that he had saved a soldier of the Norman Empire was known by all in here, by which alone many had good impressions of him. In addition, people who knew Colonel Leibniz's temperament and habits assumed that the brat Zhang Tai had become a funny toy to the man. This then could bring the colonel some funny short stories and topics to talk about when he returns, consolidating Colonel Leibniz's image of a funny and informed person in the eyes of the noble women in the wine parties and salons held in Nordenburg. Those topics might even bring Colonel Leibniz some good nights. Everything was very simple. After handling the formalities in the headquarters, Second Lieutenant Vesey, the advisor of Colonel Leibniz, bought a car, stopping it before the gates of the headquarters building and inviting Zhang Tai in. "Where are we going?" Zhang Tai asked. "The logistics department first. After that, I'll take you to the Iron Blood camp to register." Advisor Vesey answered. Zhang Tai then sat in the convertible military SUV before it drove away. The moment they drove outside the gates, Zhang Tai caught sight of several familiar faces out the window. "Stop!" he hurriedly exclaimed. With a sound of advisor Vesey parked the car. "I'm sorry, I just saw some friends and my elder brother. They might still be worried about me and are waiting for me outside the gates of the headquarters. I'll go greet them and tell them what is going on." While being in the headquarters, Zhang Tai had learned that a scout of the Norman Empire called Salve, whom he had saved before, was running around trying to locate him since he was arrested. Zhang Tai left the car and ran towards the familiar faces. Salve, Zhang Yang, and some other soldiers were squatting under a tree in a parterre beside the gate, seemingly waiting for Zhang Tai to be released. Of course, places like the headquarters would not allow several common soldiers and civilians in for free. Even knowing that Zhang Tai was inside, they could still only wait outside. No matter what for them, it would okay if Zhang Tai was safe. They were chatting under the tree, not having the slightest inkling that Zhang Tai might abruptly run at them from another direction. "Elder brother!" Zhang Tai exclaimed, running towards them. Zhang Yang's head swiveled to the side, and he saw his brother running over to him. He immediately jumped up from the ground and strode towards Zhang Tai. Pulling the boy into his hands, Zhang Yang was full of excitement and concern. "Are you okay?" "I'm okay, of course I'm okay." Zhang Tai smiled and patted his elder brother's hands so as to comfort him. Not until then did Zhang Yang's constricted heart finally relax. Salve also walked towards them in an impaired way, followed by Miller, Harley, and two other strange faces. Letting go of his elder brother's hands, Zhang Tai gave Salve an embrace. After that he lightly punched Salve's chest. "I was cheated by you." Salve smirked. "If I wore this military uniform, would you have saved me?" "I would have, of course I would have saved you. After striking you and making you pass out, I would have sent you back to the Wild Wolf Castle. Then I would have become a hero." Zhang Tai burst out laughing, then greeted Miller, Harley, and some other people whom he had seen once before. At that time he had only felt these guys weird, but unexpectedly, they were scouts of the Norman Empire, who were their cleaning path for the army. In merely 1 month, Black Hot City had experienced a groundbreaking change. Every resident became the citizen of the Norman Empire.
Therefore, their previous estrangement due to different nationalities did not exist anymore, not even considering that Zhang Tai having saved Salve's life. Happy about Zhang Tai's open character, everybody burst out laughing. They all felt like having had a worthwhile morning. "Let's go home, Dad and Mom will definitely be very happy to know you're safe," Zhang Tai's elder brother said. "Let's go back home together, I'll get bottles of good alcohol, let's enjoy it tonight." "Elder brother, you go back first and tell our parents that I'm safe. Don't let them worry about me."
"I'll come back later."
"What?
"What else?"
Zhang Yang was stunned. "You'll know about it after I come back." Since Advisor Vesey had pressed on the signal twice already, Zhang Tai was better off ending his conversation. After bidding a farewell to everyone, he ran over and jumped into the SUV. Soon after, the vehicle left, leaving a curtain of dust rising up from the ground. Seeing his younger brother, who was taken away by the military administration staff outside their home yesterday, sit in the SUV and leave Black Hot City at such speed, Zhang Yang started to feel strange about him. He stayed still for quite a while. "Your younger brother should have really good luck." Miller smirked. Zhang Tai truly was going to have good luck. Advisor Vesey drove him directly to the logistics base of the No. 39 Division, which was previously a camp of the city guard but was expropriated now. Compared to the headquarters, there were more people in the Norman Empire's military uniforms here, causing it to be more lively. The spacious land in the camp was piled with various large and small dark green crates, marked with Norman Empire's army's signal, many of which were covered with waterproof tarpaulin. Advisor Vesey guided Zhang Tai directly into a room marked as Equipment Management Office and submitted a form to a military officer wearing glasses. After peering over it, the officer immediately picked himself up from behind the table. "Follow me, please." After that, he guided Zhang Tai and Advisor Vesey into a warehouse on the other side of the camp. Inside, they saw piles of materials and crates. "Calvin," the officer shouted out. Soon after, a fat and oily guy ran out from behind a pile of crates. Pointing at Zhang Tai, the officer said, "Iron Blood Camp, 2nd Lieutenant, he's been favored by Colonel Leibniz, match him with a suitable set of military uniforms." After glancing over Zhang Tai, that fat and oily guy looked slightly amazed before saying a series of data: height, 178, weight, 73, well-balanced, a bigger head, 61, shoe size, 40. "Wait a minute please." Zhang Tai was dumbfounded. What a pair of sharp eyes. He could figure out the concrete sizes of a person's body only with one glance. That was really great. Only after 2 minutes, that guy called Calvin came back to them with 2 heavy military cases and several crates in hands. After putting them onto the table, he left for another 2 minutes before returning with several cases and boxes. He then started to introduce these items to Zhang Tai. "I could only match you with the summer uniforms, informal clothes, and combat training suits along with leather waistbands. 3 suits for each. As to underwear and shirts, you have 5 for each. 2nd Lieutenant is also provided with a pair of leather boots and 3 pairs of gaiters for combat training. Other living necessities are all standard provisions. Here is a list for you. The winter uniforms will be delivered this October. As to your lieutenant's full dress, we're short on it now. You should wait for a couple of days. When it arrives, we'll deliver it together with the next month's living necessities. This package includes your epaulets, collar insignia, and the chest card of Iron Blood Camp. This box includes the lieutenant-level Sharp Arrow Type B light defense armor." Calvin reported the items in the luggage and various of crates and boxes like recounting a menu. "Are these items the provisions for a lieutenant?" Zhang Tai was dumbfounded. He finally understood how expensive it was to keep an army. What a great amount of expenditure it would take to purchase so many items. Additionally, he learned that the treatment for the 2nd Lieutenant of the Norman Empire was much better than that of the 2nd Lieutenant of Black Hot City. It even contained informal dresses, full dresses, and combat training suits, 3 of each. Besides, it included boots. Zhang Tai realized that soldiers had a pretty high status in the Norman Empire, which could never be matched by the soldiers in the Andaman Alliance. Compared to the soldiers of the Norman Empire, those of the Andaman Alliance were more like a group of bodyguards and courtyard guardians for rich men. "After a while, we will go to the Iron Blood Camp. You can put on instead of informal clothes," Advisor Vesey suggested. "Here?"
"Yes, here."
"Can I take a bath? You know I stayed in the prison last night. That was not a clean place." Zhang Tai explained in an embarrassed way. Captain Vesey didn't speak but looked at the officer of the logistics base with a pair of inquiring eyes. "Calvin, take him for a bath." Hearing the order, Calvin took Zhang Tai to the bathroom of this camp, where Zhang Tai took a good bath. His clothes were still the same with which he returned from the survival training. So after last night's experience in the dark club on the underground floor 3, besides being dirty, they even had numerous fleas, making them not only itchy but also have bad luck of those in the cell. Zhang Tai of course would not bring these bad items back home. So he threw that entire set of clothes from top to feet, including a pair of socks with 2 holes in them along with the pair of heavily worn shoes, into the trash bin in the bathroom. After finishing the bath, he put on the new uniform of a soldier of the Norman Empire, which included socks, underwear, vest, informal dress and boots. Chapter 159, Clothes Make a Man. Men usually took baths very fast. Only a bit over 10 minutes later, Zhang Tai already stood in front of Second Lieutenant Vesey in a set of fresh new clothes and shiny sheepskin boots. At the sight of him everybody was stunned. Not only them, even Zhang Tai himself could never believe that the handsome youth in the mirror was him. That youth in the mirror had white and smooth skin, tender yet distinct features. The black and silky hair indicated his abundant nutrition and great vitality. Although he was not tall, not too tough looking, he was very balanced. All the lines and proportions of his body displayed the special adolescence and perfection of the young. But despite that youthful look, there was a certain air of maturity about him. To tell the truth, since the start of the survival training, Zhang Tai had not used a mirror. So he had no idea that he was absolutely different from that poor youth from several months ago after eating a pile of leekless fruits, iron body fruits, trouble reappearance fruits, and wild wolf 7 strength fruits. He looked very reserved now. Besides that, he was distant and noble. And those qualities seemed as if they had been with him since he was born. It was especially made to look so by that set of dark red informal dress of the Norman Empire's lieutenant, as well as the pair of boots. The former was made of a good material, while the latter was something that Zhang Tai had never worn before, and the two together made him shine as brilliant as a polished jewel. Honestly, when he caught sight of that image in the mirror, the first thought that came to his mind was not delight but jealousy. After realizing that he was envying himself, his heart then filled to the brim with a sense of excitement. Zhang Tai turned round and round before the mirror for at least 2 minutes before finally confirming that the guy with a pretty nice look in the mirror was truly him. He then grimaced to himself in the mirror and left the bathroom. The moment Zhang Tai came out, he attracted all the other soldiers' attention, who were also wearing dark red military uniforms of the Norman Empire. When he stopped before Advisor Vesey, Calvin, and that military officer of the logistics base, the 3 guys who were smoking and chatting immediately popped out their eyes with mouths wide open. At the same time, Advisor Vesey's tobacco fell to the ground. Neither of them had imagined that the previous dirty person would turn into a handsome youth that now stood in front of them. "You're Zhang Tai?" Advisor Vesey asked to confirm it. "I also realize that I'm very handsome in military uniforms. This set looks like it was specially customized to suit me." "Noembi." Zhang Tai spoke in a witty way like before. Advisor Vesey's eyes glittered, and it was hard to say what he was thinking about. Calvin ran to Zhang Tai and buckled everything to his uniform, the collar insignia, epaulettes, and chest badges. He then helped Zhang Tai put on his military cap that was specially designed for second lieutenants and buckled his cap badge before fastening the waistband around Zhang Tai's waist. When he was done, Zhang Tai was like a brilliant person that had walked out of a painting. Calvin burst out laughing and said, "Brat, since I've begun doing this earlier, I could sense that this would end in a great achievement. Colonel Leibniz really has special vision." After watching Zhang Tai for a while, the military officer of the logistics base also praised with his eyes on Advisor Vesey, "This man is born to wear military uniforms. I've never seen anyone so suited to them." Previously, this military officer was just taking Zhang Tai's affair as a public affair, therefore, he treated him solemnly. However, now, he treated Zhang Tai much more enthusiastically. Perhaps, as Calvin had said, it could truly bring a sense of achievement to a person when he saw a poor youth becoming brilliant right in front of him. "Have you chosen your weapon?" that military officer asked Zhang Tai.
"No."
"Then, let's go to the arsenal to select a proper weapon for you." Soon after, the 4 people entered the arsenal of the logistics base. A lieutenant of the Norman Empire could own 3 weapons, a uniform dagger, an imperial longsword, and one another. The longsword was a ceremonial requirement for attending special occasions for every military officer. Besides the 2 aforementioned weapons, the last one was determined by the troop the lieutenant was in and his concrete position. The third weapon was called the main battle weapon. For instance, besides the two previous weapons, a commander of a pike matrix would always own a customized long pike as his main battle weapon. The military officers of the Ironhorn cavalries would choose a heavy saber or a long pike, while soldiers and military officers who were carrying out special tasks would even choose machine bows or common bows. The types of dagger and longsword were singular, but when selecting his next one, Zhang Tai became dumbfounded. The arsenal of No. 39 Division widely broadened his vision, since besides crates of uniformed weapons, there were also various long and short cold weapons that Zhang Tai had never seen before. They dazzled him. Unexpectedly, when he scanned over the weapons, he just passed by the light weapons without even giving them a second look. He instead became obsessed with the heavy and large ones. Looking at Zhang Tai's figure, the other three people started to doubt whether he could even move them or not. Finally, after circling half of the colossal arsenal, Zhang Tai saw an item on the shelf. Eyes turning shiny, he hurriedly walked towards it. It was a set of lances, similar to the ones he'd used in the survival training, placed in a cylinder which was longer than 1 meter. However, the first difference was that this set of javelins were completely made of metal, instead of being composed of a wooden handle and steel head. The second difference was that the heads of the lances that he used in survival training were as sharp as needles, but the heads of these ones were triangular and much larger. Zhang Tai pulled one out and weighed it. He felt that it was at least 13 kilograms and was roughly 10 centimeters longer than the ones he'd used before. It felt much more suitable. To him, the previous lances were akin to straws. Those light sticks did not match his present strength or help him exert his maximal fighting force anymore. These javelins' bodies were composed of different sections, each section of different width due to the principles of aerodynamics. The sections with different widths felt much more coherent. Holding the lance, Zhang Tai even sensed a fighting spirit from it. Besides, he could feel the delicate anti-slippery patterns on its body. All in all, if the previous lances were regarded as the previous Zhang Tai, these lances were like the present him. The latter version was much better than the earlier one. Do these items belong to one set? Zhang Tai pointed at the cylinder and asked. Whether looking at the modeling, the workmanship, or the texture, this cylinder used to contain the lances was dozens of times better than the one he'd used during the survival training. Yes, these items belong to one set, but can I select them? Zhang Tai immediately asked. No, precisely, these items were not made for individuals but for the Ironhorn cavalry. Several years ago, the Imperial Weapons Manufacturing Department produced these items, planning to use them to arm the Ironhorn cavalry. They wanted to see the power of the Ironhorn cavalry when it had the help of these javelins. However, after giving them out to the troop, the end result was really poor. How could that be? I feel that they're great. The Ironhorn cavalry felt that these items were too heavy. If they were equipped on the Ironhorn beasts, it would slow the speed and weaken the endurance of the animal as well as the agility of the whole troop. In addition, if these javelins were to display their true power, they would have to be thrown with a great power, yet could not reach too far. This would pose extremely high requirements to the personal strength of the cavalrymen. If only a few of them could do that, they could hardly threaten their opponents. Additionally, it was much more difficult for them to throw javelins as precisely as shooting arrows from a common or machine bow. If throwing weapons were needed, most of the Ironhorn cavalry would prefer axes instead of javelins. Therefore, several days later, as the troop didn't have a high evaluation of these javelins, the plan to equip the Ironhorn beasts with javelins was aborted. The remainder was left here several years ago, the military officer of the logistics base patiently explained to Zhang Tai.
Fine, I'll take it.
Saying this, Zhang Tai took the cylinder which contained 9 identical javelins. He didn't know that such a simple move stimulated the eyelids of the other people beside him to jump crazily. There was a total of 9 javelins inside the container, each of which weighed 12.6 kilograms. That, added with the weight of the container which was made of aluminum alloy, steel wire, and leather, weighed roughly 120 kilograms in total. Many people would hardly even lift it using 2 hands, while this youth took them with only 1 hand. That was really an amazing strength he possessed. Zhang Tai didn't realize that after eating 9 wild wolf 7-strength fruits, he had gained 9 wild wolves' strengths in his body. That meant that the total weight of this equipment was shared by 9 wild wolves, over 10 kilograms for each. And for a wild wolf, was this a heavy weight? Additionally, Zhang Tai was already a LV4 warrior. Although the container felt a bit heavy in his hand, it was not too difficult for him to hold it. After exchanging glances with each other, both Advisor Vesey and that military officer of the logistics base saw great amazement in the other's eyes. Recruited by Colonel Leibniz, the youngest lieutenant in the entire division, part of the Ironblood camp, having extremely great strength, excellent looks, elusive fighting force, when all these conditions were combined into one person, Zhang Tai, that military officer of the logistics base, immediately realized that this youth before him might be a successful and worthy investment. Strictly, these lances are like arrows and easily worn away, so they're not main battle weapons. I can present them to you if you like. The military officers of the logistics base eyes became warmer. You seem to have a great strength, perhaps you can try a special lieutenant-level item that others could not use. Zhang Tai's curiosity was immediately piqued. Chapter 160, The Super Heavy Battle Sword. When the military officer fetched the item that had been placed here for a long time, he introduced himself to Zhang Tai. Karak, 1st Lieutenant of the Logistics Base of No. 39 Division. My position is medium-ranked. Since I neither had any contacts among big figures nor could be promoted by battle experience, so I ended up as a bad-luck civil official who can only defend the warehouse and deal with the chores in the logistics base. As for his kind hint, of course Zhang Tai could hear it. So he also made an official introduction to 1st Lieutenant Karak and that slippery Calvin, expressing his thanks for their help today. Afterwards, the atmosphere became more harmonious. Standing aside, Advisor Vesey changed his opinion of Zhang Tai as the boy's quick mind completely overthrew the advisor's notion of those who had formed blood iron hidden strength. Across No. 39 Division, all the guys who had formed it were violent maniacs with cruel personalities. They were either bad-tempered or as hard and icy as stones. People who had formed Iron Blood Fist skill yet were as kind as Zhang Tai were rarely seen. How could the battle god favor such people? Advisor Vesey couldn't understand it, however, this didn't prevent him from having a good impression of Zhang Tai. Perhaps such a guy could really become famous in No. 39 Division. Calvin finally fetched something out of the piles of items using a hand-pushed forklift that was used to transport items in the warehouse. He pulled it in front of them. At the sight of this item, Zhang Tai's eyes also popped out as this weapon was way too exaggerated. It was a truly huge sword in a terrifying shape. Compared with it, all the long swords that Zhang Tai had seen, even the largest one that he had seen, were like toothpicks before a chopstick. This sword was as large as a weapon used by giants. Lying on the forklift, it was definitely longer than 2 m, which meant if it was put down point first on the ground, it'd be taller than Zhang Tai. This super heavy battle sword is a non-uniformed lieutenant-level main battle weapon made by weapon craftsmen when blood rushed to their heads. It weighs 358 kilograms. Nobody can wave it among all the lieutenants of No. 39 Division. 1st Lieutenant Karak introduced the weapon. If lieutenants can have it, then higher-ranked military officers can definitely have it too? Zhang Tai asked out of curiosity. Field officers' weapons would be made of superior materials. When you are promoted to a field officer, if you like this kind of heavy main battle weapon, you can definitely have one made using better materials. This is the privilege of Imperial field officers. This weapon is mainly made of LV2 tungsten manganese alloy steel, while Imperial field officers are entitled to use LV3 special alloy. Advisor Vesey explained. When you enter the army, you will gradually understand these things. Staring at that battle sword of 358 kilograms, Zhang Tai felt his blood boiling. If Karak and Vesey knew why it did so, they would pass out right away. Dondra said that if there's a benefit to be gained, and you didn't take it, you'd be a bastard. As for such a special weapon, even if I don't use it, it's still worth a lot of money if I sell it in an emergency. LV2 tungsten manganese alloy steel shouldn't be average. This was what Zhang Tai really considered at this moment. Such a super heavy battle sword was a great benefit waiting for him to pick it up. If he did that, he would own it. Therefore, Zhang Tai felt his blood boiling in his body. He then put the cylinder of lances to the side. After taking a deep breath, he walked in front of the hand-pushed forklift. With his hands, he took hold of the handle of the 358 kilograms battle sword. The handle was like a stout stick composed of compressed dough like duck's eggs. As the four sides of the handle were covered with wavy grains, it was definitely anti-slippery. It was roughly 40 centimeters in length, which could be grasped by 2 hands. The blade part was designed much simpler. The arm guard that connected the handle and the blade of the sword was a square steel alloy board which was as large as a small shield. It alone would weigh at least 30 kilograms, having over 20 centimeters of blade inside. One side of the blade was plain and sharp-edged, undergone anti-rust treatment, while the other was sawtoothed and glittering with icy lights. Besides that, the blood grooves on the blade were as wide as a person's thumb. If one was slashed by such a fierce weapon, it was easy to imagine the outcome. The only problem now was who could use it. When Zhang Tai took hold of that super-heavy battle sword, Karak, Vesey, and Calvin's hearts started pounding. One reason that Karak had fetched this super-heavy battle sword was to check Zhang Tai's real strength. With the handle in his hands, Zhang Tai gradually increased the output of his strength. When those 358 kilograms of the battle sword started leaving the forklift with the sound of guzhi from the spring and hydraulic supporting the rod beneath the forklift, Karak, Vesey, and Calvin's eyes immediately popped out. It was heavy, very heavy, but it was still within Zhang Tai's physical limit. If he tried to hold it only using one hand, that would be too presumptuous. So he brought it up with both hands and wove it in the air as if slashing someone. Right, slashing someone. Seeing Zhang Tai slashing with the super-heavy battle sword, the three guys were really scared, hurriedly jumping away. Zhang Tai moved so fast that a killing wind could even be felt when he raised it to the top of his head and slashed down before steadily stopping it half a feet above the ground, causing the dust on the ground to be blown away by the air flow produced by the blade. He burst out laughing. Since he ate the 9 Wild Wolf 7 strength fruits, he had not been as cool as today. This battle sword was heavy, able to completely make use of the 9 Wild Wolves' strengths in Zhang Tai's body. Slashing with, Zhang Tai felt like doing a very interesting physical exercise. Although it was a bit hard, he found it very fun and pretty cool, especially when he saw the other three people's faces turn pale. All men long for great strength. With the powerful sword in his hands, Zhang Tai found it very interesting to exert his strength. It brought him a sense of achievement. Hoo. Zhang Tai slashed with the huge sword of 358 kilograms, causing continual weird sounds. The other people hurriedly moved a couple more steps back. After slashing for about half a minute, Zhang Tai intended to put down that battle sword. After loosening his grip, it fell to the ground, making a small pit and several cracks on the cement ground. I feel this battle sword is very proper. When Zhang Tai hefted the battle sword of 358 kilograms and walked out of the arsenal, he attracted the attention of all the passers-by in the logistics base. Advisor Vesey helped him by carrying the container of the lances which weighed more than 100 kilograms, while Karak and Calvin aided in loading the packages and that crate with the set of Sharp Arrow Type B light armor onto the back seats of the vehicle. These items, in total, would weigh more than half a ton. After putting them in the vehicle, the chassis seemed even lower than before. At this moment, Zhang Tai felt like he'd robbed several stores on the street. The sense of free selection was really cool. He started to feel really well about being a citizen of the Norman Empire. After thanking Karak and Calvin, Zhang Tai bid farewell to them and got on the vehicle. Afterwards, he left the logistics base along with Advisor Vesey. "Officer, I feel that this brat will become someone great one day," the short and slippery Calvin said to Karak after seeing off Zhang Tai. Karak nodded, feeling that what he did today would bring him great returns. As for freaks like Zhang Tai, it would be weirder for them not to become outstanding.
Where are we going?
Zhang Tai asked Advisor Vesey, who was driving. To register in the Ironblood camp, then coming back to the headquarters. I'm sure Colonel Leibniz will want to know how you look in an Imperial military uniform. Can you tell me something about the Ironblood camp? Zhang Tai asked. Have you seen those idiot senior fighters who just stand still with arms crossed behind big gang-like brothers, exposing their tattooed and developed muscles to others? Advisor Vesey turned his head and asked Zhang Tai. There should also be gangs like this in Blackhot City.
Yes, I've seen them.
Ironblood camp is full of those kind of fighters, those who would even perform as part-time dare-to-die corps. Zhang Tai became speechless. Most of the barracks left by the city guard, who'd been given a holiday to wait for updates at home, had been occupied by the No. 39 Division. The barracks of Ironblood camp were in the east of Blackhot City. Coincidentally, it was where Zhang Tai's elder brother's regiment had been stationed. Besides the soldiers standing guard outside the entrance, when Zhang Tai arrived at the headquarters of Ironblood camp, he saw few people walking about. Those he did see inside presented two extremes. One pile of careless-looking people were lazily lying around the grassland with sunglasses on. Some of them had even fastened soft beds between trees. Sleeping in them, they stretched their hairy legs outside the hammocks, while others were playing cards and exclaiming under trees, seemingly gambling. They were like playboys from rich families enjoying a holiday. In contrast to these scenes, some guys were training extremely hard on the training ground. Zhang Tai saw dozens of tough guys practicing Lying Tiger move with sweat running down their backs in torrents. The skin on their backs had also peeled off from the scorching rays of the sun and must have felt like it was on fire. The guys here didn't seem to care about anything, as the arrival of Zhang Tai and Advisor Vesey didn't attract their attention whatsoever. Advisor Vesey seemed to have seen this scene numerous times, so he didn't find anything weird about it. Taking Zhang Tai into an office, he briefly explained his reason for coming to an on-duty military officer and gave Zhang Tai's file to him. After that, he introduced Zhang Tai to that officer before giving the youth 2 keys for his officer's dorm and a pass card. By then, Zhang Tai had finished his registration in the Iron Blood Camp. The holiday of Iron Blood Camp will end in 5 days. You have to come here then to greet Boss Reinhardt. During these days, you can do whatever you want. You can also stir up trouble if you're not afraid of being caught by those bastards of the military police or being remembered by others who'll find you here. Here, even the on-duty officer looked lazy. The lieutenant's dorm was not bad. It was located in a 6th-floor building beside the training ground. There was a small garden underneath it. Outside the entrance of the officer's dorm building was sentry box with soldiers watching inside. Each floor was matched with a service platform and servicewomen. Zhang Tai's dorm was in room No. 508, floor 5. It was a single room with less than 30 square meters, wooden floor, and matched with an independent washing room where he could take a bath. There was also a steam-heated system, a bed, a table, a wardrobe, a shoe rack, a safe, and a weapon and helmet hanger. Zhang Tai had place enough to leave all of his luggage in here. It was surely like a hotel. As for the 2 keys, one was for the door, the other was for the safe inside the room. The status of a military officer of the Norman Empire was fully displayed here. Advisor Vesey and Zhang Tai ran 2 rounds before taking up all of his belongings upstairs and placing them inside the room. When leaving the Iron Blood Camp together with Advisor Vesey, Zhang Tai suddenly felt that there was something weird with the service platform. He remembered that no female workers could be seen in the military officers' dorms of the city guard of Blackhot City. If women were thrown into the pile of tough guys, it would be no different from throwing a lamb into a pack of wolves. What are the servicewomen there for? Servicewomen? Vesey stared at Zhang Tai with a puzzled look, not sure what he had meant. I mean those women standing behind the service platforms on each floor. Zhang Tai explained himself. Advisor Vesey then finally understood. I was confused there for a moment. Those women are not servicewomen. They're guilty slaves that stay with the army. The Norman Empire gave them a chance to reduce their guilt by providing manual labor and other services. After saying that, Advisor Vesey glanced at Zhang Tai. As a military officer of the Norman Empire, if you do not wish to play them to death, you can order them to do everything you want. Remember everything. This is also welfare for the Norman Empire's military officers. Zhang Tai was not a kid anymore, so he immediately understood Advisor Vesey's words. These guilty slaves that lived with the army were playing 2 roles, living servants and military prostitutes. They had no dignity at all. Zhang Tai's heart pounded as he thought of the women. Today's fantastic experience almost made him forget that the Norman Empire was a hierarchical monarchy which had its icy and hard side. Just a moment ago, he had become a member of the huge and hard system of this empire. Advisor Vesey seemed to understand that Zhang Tai would have trouble adapting to some aspects of the Norman Empire's system. After all, there was a great difference between the one he had lived his whole life with and the one he found himself in now. I wonder, have you heard a proverb of Emperor Felix? Advisor Vesey asked Zhang Tai while driving the car. What proverb? Hierarchy is order, order is beauty. The steam-driven car drove Zhang Tai away through the streets of Blackhot City, leaving dust flying in the air.